Hey, everybody. I just wanted to bring you a few little news briefs. There's a couple of things I wanted to chat about. The first one is going to be former Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State, I should say, some of the things that she had to say with regards to Putin. And so I want to bring that story to you first of all. And here you can read it with us. Here it says, oh no, 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 no. This is my other story. I don't want you guys to get this one first, but let's go ahead since it's the first one I pulled up. It must be a reason. So the go broke dates are pushed back for Social Security and Medicare. A stronger than expected economy recovery from the pandemic has pushed the go broke dates for Social Security and Medicare back. But officials warn that the current economic turbulence is putting additional pressures on the bedrock retirement programs. The annual Social Security and Medicare Trustees report released on Thursday says the Social Security's trust fund will be unable to pay full benefits beginning 2035 instead of last year's estimated 2034. Now, the year before that, if you all remember, they did have an exhaustion date of 2035, so it doesn't look like it's too much of a great thing, but this is what they are giving us as the new dates. The projected depletion date for Medicare's trust fund for inpatient hospital care has moved back 2 years to 2028 from the 2026 date that they originally had, which is the first forecast for last year. Now, the economic recovery from 2020 recession, this is a quote, the economic recovery from the 2020 recession has been stronger and faster than assumed in the last year's reports, with positive effects on the projected actual status of the trust funds in these reports. This is what the report states. President Joe Biden said in a statement that the report shows that the strong economic recovery driven by my economic and vaccination plans has strengthened programs that millions of Americans rely on and has put our nation in a better fiscal position, close quote. Forecasters state in the report that the ongoing COVID 19 pandemic will have no net effect on their long range projections. But they also noted that assumptions for their latest report were made in February, which was before cases began climbing again nationally and inflation rose even higher. Social Security paid benefits to more than 65 million Americans, mainly retirees, as well as disabled people and survivors of deceased workers. Medicare covers roughly $64 million, 64 million, older and disabled people. When Social Security Trust Fund is depleted, the government will be able to only pay 80% of the scheduled benefits, the report says. Medicare will be able to pay 90% of the total scheduled benefits when the fund is depleted, and income for Medicare's hospital insurance fund is projected to be higher than estimates from the last year because the number of covered workers who help fund it and their average wages are both expected to be higher. A main source of financing is payroll taxes on earnings paid by employees and employers. About 183 million paid those taxes in 2021. The report also projects the Medicare Part B premium for outpatient coverage to remain stable at $170.10 a month, but administration officials said that projection is based on information from earlier this year and it doesn't reflect any expected drop due to an overestimation of the cost of covering the Alzheimer's treatment addendum. Now, the trustees of Social Security and Medicare include the secretaries of Treasury and Health and Human Services and Labor, as well as Social Security Commissioner. They are supposed to be joined by two public trustees. However, those positions have been vacant since 2015. A representative from the White House did not respond to an email inquiry about whether the president intends to nominate new public trustees. The trustees' report is an added reminder of the United States government financial troubles as it juggles historically high inflation, recovery from a pandemic, and the Ukraine war. AARP CEO Joanne Jenkins said the report sends a clear message to Congress despite the short term improvement. You must act to protect the benefits people have earned and paid into both now and for the long term, close quote. The stakes are too high for the millions of Americans who rely on Medicare and Social Security for their health and their financial well being, she says. This year, Social Security retirees got a 5.9% boost in benefits, the biggest cost of living adjustment, also known as COLA, in 39 years. Representative Ron Thompson, a 24-year-old DC resident, says this year's cost of living increase has been transformational as a trickle-down benefit to his family as he helps to take care of his 77-year-old grandmother who lives on the other side of town. Transportation costs, which has surged due to high inflation, have made it difficult for Thompson and his mother to drive to take care of his grandmother. Thompson says, quote, all of us have experienced high costs. Because his grandmother can pass on some of her Social Security benefits to her daughter to help pay for gasoline costs, the adjustment is a cushion that my mom can rest on, he says, as she travels to care for Thompson's grandmother. Now, the Treasury official said this year's high inflation could prompt an 8% increase in benefits next year. Maya McGinnis, the president of the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, said in a statement that policymakers need to get their heads out of the sand and stop pretending these vital programs' funding issues will fix themselves. Very good comment, close quote. A Congressional Budget Office report states that the biggest drivers of the debt rising in relation to the GDP are increasing interest costs and spending for Medicare and Social Security. An aging population drives those numbers. Charles Blahos, a senior economic advisor for President George Bush, the former President George W., and a public trustee of the Social Security and Medicare during the Obama administration, told the Associated Press, quote, the first thing that's important to do is grasp the baseline. It's very dire, he said. Blahos says failing to finance Social Security and Medicare under its current structure would, quote, subject the programs to perpetual renegotiation with the threat of the benefit cuts or elimination in the future. Now, you all can go and look here. It does state here that Senator Rick Scott, Florida, is proposing an 11-point governance plan that would require Congress to come up with a proposal to adequately fund the programs or potentially phase them out. Biden said Scott's plan, quote, that's not the way to strengthen these programs. Close quote. Okay. He continues with, I will work with anyone willing to have an open and honest conversation about growing our economy, bringing down inflation, improving our fiscal position, and strengthening the programs that millions of Americans rely on, Biden said. Sounds like a bunch of fluff. It continues here. If we were to wait until the 2030s to take action, Blahos said the annual shortfall would be so large, so many times larger, that it's not possible to fathom. House Ways and Means Chairman Richard E. Neal, Democrat of Massachusetts, said in a statement that, quote, Democrats will continue to fight to ensure that these essential programs remain strong through good times and bad. It sounds like a bunch of mouth breathing. Really, it does to me. Sounds like a bunch of mouth breathing. So there's that. Now we're going to go into another story here. I hope that you guys are not having any interference today because we're using a completely different browser. Today we're using our Microsoft browser because I think that's what was giving us the interference, that when we tried to switch over before, that's what gave us the issues. So now we're going to go on to Lady Hillary, which is where I really wanted to start. She's making a few comments on the whole Michael Sussman thing, but let's go on ahead and see here what she says. So now this is where we are. We're talking about Hillary Clinton and dealing with the Sussman charge for lying. The FBI is acquitted. But here are some statements that she made with regards to Putin. The former U.S. Secretary of State and Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton said in a Thursday interview that Vladimir Putin cannot handle critics, and the Russian president thinks of himself as a type of messiah. She says, quote, Putin does not like critics, especially women critics, close quote. Clinton said at the Hay Festival of Literature and Arts in England on Thursday, per The Guardian. She continues, Putin then became very adversarial towards me with few exceptions. As we know, despite efforts to say to the contrary, he worked very hard to get Trump elected through all kinds of means, closed quote. When Putin served as Russia's prime minister and Clinton was Secretary of State, Clinton told the crowd at the festival she witnessed him, quote, his almost messianic belief in himself and what he was destined to be, closed quote. Now, Clinton said that she was sadly not surprised with the war in Ukraine, noting that Putin's goal of restoring imperial Russia, closed quote. Clinton recalled writing memos during her tenure, working with former President Barack Obama, ensuring warnings that Putin could become, quote, a threat to Europe and the rest of the world, close quote, while expressing optimism at the time that he may, quote, shelve his aggressive ambitions, close quote. Clinton said her dynamic with Putin turned awry following his third presidential term in 2012, when Putin blamed Clinton for pro-democracy protests. Here's a quote. The Russian people, like people everywhere, deserve the right to have their voices heard and their votes counted, Clinton said at the time, suggesting the election was fraudulent and did not, quote, meet international standards, closed quote. Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, said in a video on Friday that Ukrainians have been defending their country for 100 days against Russian aggression and added that victory shall be ours. The link to this story as well is down below in the description. Now, there is another story that we're going to go into, and that's dealing with Trump's former aide. It was his trade advisor, and there's some stuff going on with him. So let's just get to the bottom of that. All right, there we are. Excuse me. All right, so the former Trump White House official, Peter Navarro, has been indicted on 2 counts of criminal contempt of Congress after refusing to comply with a subpoena from the House committee investigation, the January 6th, that's investigating the January 6th attack on the Capitol, the U.S. Capitol, the Justice Department recently just announced. So Navarro, who was a trade advisor to Trump, also revealed he received a grand jury subpoena as a part of a related Justice Department probe in a lawsuit that he filed Tuesday against the House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, and the bipartisan House committee. Navarro, who filed the lawsuit on his own without a lawyer, did not immediately respond with a request for a comment. Navarro is 72 years old and is charged with 1 count of contempt involving his refusal to appear for deposition and another involving his refusal to produce documents to the committee, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office for Washington. I don't know. It seems like a lot of people are not feeling this whole, inquiry thing with this investigation, and for obvious reasons. But let's just go on ahead. Let's see where we're according to the United States Attorney Office for Washington. The charges against Navarro, the second former Trump advisor to face criminal charges in connection with rebuffing the committee, mirror those by the House and filed by the U.S. prosecutors in November against former White House advisor Stephen K. Bannon, after he too refused to appear or produce documents to the committee. It's like, let me be quiet and finish reading because I don't want to get caught in the weeds. But I tell you, they're calling me. Oh, it's like everybody saying, y'all know doggone good and well I'm not coming up there to talk about this fake stuff. But anyway, I digress. The indictment was returned Thursday and unsealed Friday, and Navarro is to make his initial appearance this afternoon in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. The January 6th committee subpoenaed Navarro on February 9th, seeking records and testimony from the former trade advisor who has written and publicly discussed the effort to develop a strategy to delay or overturn certification of the 2020 election. In its subpoena, the Select Committee said it had reason to believe that Navarro had information relevant to its investigation. Navarro, formerly an advisor to the president on various trade and manufacturing policies, has been a private citizen since departing the White House on January 20th, 2021. As you know, Steve Bannon was indicted after refusal to comply with the January 6th committee subpoena. Prosecutors allege that Navarro did not communicate at all with the committee after receiving the subpoena. The day after February 23rd deadline for documents had passed, Navarro emailed in reply and a reminder from the committee stating in part, President Trump, quote, President Trump has invoked executive privilege in this matter. Accordingly, my hands are tied, according to the indictment. When the committee said several topics did not raise executive privilege concerns, Navarro replied February 28th and said the privilege, quote, is not mine to waive, close quote, and said the committee must directly negotiate the matter with Trump and his attorneys, prosecutors said. Both Navarro and Bannon have indicted by the grand jury in Washington, a rare move by the Justice Department to escalate the consequences of a dispute involving Congress by bringing criminal charges. Each charge against the two men carries a maximum sentence of 1 year in jail. The charges will not compel Navarro to talk. Legal analysts have said Congress could sue to try to affect that result, hoping a judge would hold Navarro in civil contempt and jail him until he cooperated. The department has not yet acted on referrals from Congress for charges against former Trump chief of staff Mark Meadows and communication chief Daniel Scavino Jr. Presidents generally have sought to protect current and former aides from having to testify before Congress, and the Justice Department has in recent history refused to bring criminal cases against current and former officials after contempt findings from Congress. And in 2018, for example, the department rebuffed charges against President George W.'s chief of staff, Joshua Bolten, and former White House counsel Harriet Miers, who had resisted subpoenas over the controversial forced resignations of U.S. attorneys in 2012. The department declined to pursue a contempt prosecution against Attorney General Eric Holder, who refused to turn over some documents about the so-called Fast and Furious scandal and gun runner sting gone wrong. The committee is set to open public televised hearings next week, while Bannon, who has pleaded not guilty, is not set for trial until mid-July. There is that part. So those are the news briefs. That's the news brief that I wanted to bring to you guys today, dealing specifically with all of this stuff. It's so funny to me when I see all of the grappling, and I cannot blame these folks, especially. And listen, again, this is not about partisan. This is not about a party. This is just about what is. I just cannot blame either of those gentlemen for saying, yeah, no, I don't think so. Yeah, no, I don't feel like coming out playing with you guys today. And the reason that I say that is because to them, they feel as if this is a non-thing, that these things are no things, that they're no things at all. So with that said, we'll just wait and see how these things unfold. We'll bring possibly a couple more of these news briefs as news becomes available on a varied amount of topics throughout the day. And this evening, Charlie Sigler, somebody called you out, my brother from another mother. Somebody said that you were away studying. And I think that they were given a little bit of jonesing, because tonight on the Lockhart Perspective, we are having the Bible trivia. And usually all of our trivia, Charlie usually wins. He's won prizes. I think you won a gift card from Amazon, a virtual card, and I know you won a book that my cousin wrote. And so I think everybody is waiting for you to show up tonight to see what you bring to the table for the members only Bible trivia tonight at 7 o'clock Central. Yes, Central Time on the Lockhart Perspective. So we're going to close now, but I hope that everyone is having a great day, just a wonderful day. I see everybody here. I see you won the book and you won the card. Yes. Okay. So we'll see. You'll be there and be. It may not be that hard. But A Hal says, I think Hillary knew she was going to lose. It was a setup. She probably was running the show behind the scene. You know what, A Hal? You just may be right. And I think a lot of people may agree with you on that. I see Disco Winter. How are you? Joey Trujillo, Zeb Johnson. I see everybody. So let's see. Watching my life flash B. Blue collar hero. Hey, how's it going? I love that name. I love that name. I love that name. That is hilarious. Let's see. Lisa Pritchard. How are you? And Matt, kiss my socialist. How are you? Samantha Enriquez. It's been a good minute since I've seen you, but hello, Carrie Richardson. Good to see you as well. Netta T, and I don't think there's anybody else that I've missed. I see Joy Trujillo there again. Okay, just wanted to make sure that I said hey to you guys before we pull out of here. But yeah, that's the news brief for right now. We will possibly bring some more stuff. If we can find 3 good solid stories to bring you again, we'll just bring it like that. How about that? All right, folks, you guys take care, and we'll see you again real soon.